It's Hawaii Matters, a Pacific Media Group community program. I'm your host, Kathy with a K. The first homeless shelter in Hawaii, founded on Oahu in 1978, it was a peanut butter ministry named after the peanut butter sandwiches that were handed out to the unhoused population. It has since blossomed into programs that help those meeting addiction challenges, those in transitions, and those who may want to go home, finding their way. Our guest today is Constance Mitchell, Executive Director of IHS Hawaii, Institute for Human Services, Hawaii. Constance, thank you. Connie,
yes,
if I may.
Aloha, Kathy.
You have been the Executive Director of IHS Hawaii since 2006. What do you remember about the programs offered then?
I think when I walked into IHS in 2006, it was really getting myself familiar with the fact that we were serving meals. We sheltered people. We had 2 shelters at that time, one for men and one for women and families. And we also had some case management going on. Not a whole lot, but we had a good case management program for people who may be suffering from mental illness or had some substance abuse issues. But it wasn't very huge. And I think over the years, 20 right now, we've just grown so much. And I think it's been such a joy, for me to see that we could meet new needs, as we were identifying them. Because every year, we just seem to see more of the needs. And quite frankly, I would try to appeal to others in the community that I thought were providing those services. But sometimes when people are suffering homelessness, it just changes the conversation and changes, their ability sometimes to connect with the traditional services that are out there. And so I think we've, kind of had to develop some services as a result of just needing to. Budget-wise, I think we went from about $4 million to last year, I think we ended with about $28 million. And that just represents, to me, a whole continuum of services. Whereas we had 2 shelters back there, we now have 18. We have so many different places where we're delivering services. We have congregate shelters. We have kauhale, where people have these individual units. We have houses, where people are receiving care for when they come out of the hospital, medical respite. We have other communities for people who are coming out of incarceration. And we have others still who have completed their substance abuse treatment, and they need a community around them to just kind of keep them on the straight and narrow and just really helping them to know that, hey, this is the way to go, and there's people behind you, and, we're moving forward together. The whole concept of that kauhale is about community, that you're not by yourself. We are doing this together.
Before this conversation began, I began to think of what makes an unhoused person, or what constitutes homelessness. I remember reading an article many seasons ago that the true unhoused population numbers are greater because some people may be couch surfing or families are, moving from one location to another, and they do not exit. They just continue to, increase the population of a house, a home. How do the numbers that IHS Hawaii, what numbers do you reflect? How do the numbers come together?
I think for IHS, we're constantly receiving calls for help, right? And referred by many, many different places. But I think when you talk about numbers, a lot of people point to the point in time count.
Yes.
But that is a one-day count of who is homeless. And they divide that up between unsheltered people and people who are living in shelters. But it doesn't include people who may be incarcerated. It doesn't include people who are homeless in hospitals. It doesn't include, like you said, the people who are couch surfing and really just kind of hanging out and, really because they have a friend that's willing to accommodate them, or the ones that are doubled up. And so I think, a lot of times we think that is the number, but it's actually many, many more people during the year that actually enter the service system for homelessness. But even that, there's many more people because there's people who are living in their cars, in the community as well, right? So it's really something that the phenomenon has grown. And I think, definition-wise, it's folks that just really cannot afford housing, but also cannot sustain housing because some of their own behaviors,
This is Hawaii Matters. I'm your host, Kathy with a K, talking with Connie Mitchell, Executive Director of IHS Hawaii. Why is there seemingly a greater need for programs to help homeless or unhoused persons in Honolulu County?
You know, Kathy, I think that people don't realize just the complexity of what contributes to homelessness sometimes. You know, many people think, oh, it's because, people are using drugs or they're mentally ill. But in fact, there's so many more people for economic reasons. The price of homes or rent is so much higher, in Hawaii than it is across the country. Our wages have not kept up. In some places where the housing is high, you have people at least getting paid a lot more, so they can accommodate that. That isn't the case here. And I think that growing distance between rent and, what people are making is aggravated by a lot of other things, like the presence of military on this island. We have almost all branches of military except for, I think, the Space Force. But I think everybody is on island. And it's because, there's this, geographic importance, of where Hawaii is in the world, right? So it's important for them to be here, but that also has a play in driving up costs of housing. We also have, a lot of legal restrictions, some of the permitting, problems or challenges. The cost of building housing here is more. Land is more expensive, right? So there's all of that. Then we have the different populations. Because of military, we have veterans. And, we have veterans who remember having a good time in Hawaii and enjoyed their time here. And even if they leave, some of them come back remembering that. Hawaii is marketed to a lot of people. People, on the continent see a lot of the advertising in terms of TV series, they see the wonderful, beautiful islands that we have. They want a piece of it. They want to come and see. Many people come into our shelters, say, hey, I came here. I wanted to make a fresh start, and I couldn't think of a better place that I wanted to go and do that. We have so many other, contributors in that when we do think about the people who are suffering chronic homelessness, we were the first state to really have a problem with methamphetamine abuse. ICE has just challenged us tremendously. It's broken up so many families. It's made such a problem for our community, and we really continue to have a real difficult time with that because a lot of things converging now with the drug scene on the street. It's not just meth and alcohol. It's, also the things that we knew, the marijuana is a lot stronger now than it was in the 60s. We have tainted drugs, there's mixtures of things in there. And so people are using things. They don't even know what they're using half the time. So really that contributes to people just having unexpected consequences. I want to go back to, how much housing costs. A lot of times when I talk to a group of people, I'll ask them, if you're with someone right now, you have a partner, and for some reason you separated or got divorced, or you just decided to call it quits, could you afford the housing that you're in? I think a lot of people have told me, I don't think I could. One person decides to stay, the other person is out. Neither of them can really afford it. And then you have two people that are homeless. So I think there's, those kind of things that play into our brand of homelessness here. There's a lot of trauma that people have experienced, both, because of, the overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom. That's been kind of passed on to a lot of families. I think there's just a ton of different things that make our brand of homelessness in Hawaii that much challenging in some ways.
It's a very complex issue being human, and
Absolutely.
We just process the different elements and challenges and the successes, and it's not an overnight situation where someone is no longer living there. It is a series of steps and
a series of losses, really.
Yes, and the Institute for Human Services Hawaii initially, back in the late 1970s, saw a need to help those who were going hungry, and it was peanut butter sandwiches. It's quite daring to expand and offer and really listen to the community, just in Honolulu proper. It really is island-wide, and it's I thank IHS Hawaii for continuing to provide services and to have a staff that is willing to go above and beyond. It's a complex issue. Does IHS Hawaii offer a general way we, private citizens, can help someone who is living Unhoused.
Yep.
How can you direct us with that?
Thanks, Kathy. That is absolutely one of the foundations of who IHS is. It's acknowledging and understanding that we can't do it alone. So we constantly invite the community to come alongside of us to serve the people that we are serving. When Father Dutil first started, I was a college student when I first heard him. And, he went to, a lot of different places, both challenging and inviting people, to come alongside to help, the people that he was trying to help. And, it came from himself, having some issues himself because he suffered from depression and he had a drinking problem, right? In his humility, knew that and was really blessed to have a family and, others around him that supported him. But he sought treatment. He was able to turn it around. And he, at the age of 58, started IHS.
Wow, I never knew that. Yeah.
And so that gave me, some kind of hope into thinking, okay, if somebody at 58 can start, I can start doing something, right?
You can start it every day.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so in terms of what the community can do, we always invite people simple. You want to come and just serve a meal. That was how I first got served because my church started to serve meals, at IHS, right? And, we brought music in. And so if people want to share that with people while people are eating, that's also wonderful. But we also, have so much need for other, ways that people can help. People can also, do drives for us. We just had, a couple of different companies, the courthouse, the U.S. courthouse, and then also the legal firm, Gentons, who did rice drives for us. Mm-hmm. They collected tons of rice for us. It was so awesome. You know what I mean? And we need that. We went through the rice, we go through it really quickly because we serve over 1,000 meals a day.
Every day.
And so it's just been tremendously helpful for people to step up that way. So just like you can do a drive for rice, you could do a drive for boxes of chicken or, like you could do toiletry drives or anything like that. But it's when people come closer and maybe you want to do a barbecue for the veterans at our house. Or maybe you want to do a community night for the men's shelter or the women's shelter or the family shelter. Some people come in and tutor the kids, and we have Kahawiki Village that we're managing there also with over 300 children living there, right? So there's the children's program there that we invite people to come and partner. We have volunteers helping with the sports programs over there. We have all kinds of things going on. We even have mundane things like helping in our office, because we need people to just help us, file and do some different kinds of administrative things. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's data entry. So whatever you got, I think we could find a place for you, And I think if people want to volunteer, all you have to do is go online at ihshawaii.org. And there's a button you press to just, find out about volunteer opportunities.
IHS Hawaii may be most known for the homeless shelter in Iwilei. How has IHS Hawaii been able to expand its services to other vulnerable parts of Oahu's population?
So I think I mentioned the different types of shelters we have. We call them specialty shelters. But we also have specialty outreach teams. So our outreach team right now, our general outreach team covers about half the island. It's the urban Honolulu area from Salt Lake all the way to Sandy Beach, and then on the windward side from Waimanalo all the way up to Kahuku, Turtle Bay. And so that's the whole area that we cover for outreach. But we have specialized mental health outreach for people who are truly in need because they're encountering the police a lot, or they're getting taken in by the EMS to the hospital. For those people, we actually have a team that covers the whole island. And so if they have need for mental health, and especially mental health treatment, that is a team that we can send out. So we partner with a lot of the other service providers because we don't want to be duplicating services. So if somebody else is taking care of somebody, we'll let them deal with it. But if there isn't someone, then I think it's really important that we be able to step up and help some of these folks that otherwise wouldn't get the kind of help that they need.
So if there is a need that someone may see in their neighborhood, go on to ihshawaii.org and find more details. Connie Mitchell, can you talk about the different reasons a person will walk through the doors of IHS Hawaii on Sumner Street in Iwilei? Or is that the only place somebody can go to seek assistance or just to get information for somebody they may know or be caring for that because sometimes that can complicate a household too, where you are helping a loved one and sometimes that person's needs are beyond what you can provide over time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think for us, we actually partner a lot with AUW, Aloha United
yes.
Way. And so we often will tell people, if you know somebody in need, call AUW 211. Because if you call there, that's a hotline that they can connect to all different kinds of social services. And it may not be that IHS is the best, organization to help that person, but whoever is referred to us, we make every effort to serve that person and really connect them. If we can't do it, we'll connect them up with somebody else. But I think we really like for people to call AUW 211. They are fielding calls from everywhere throughout the whole state. But I think it helps us have some screening, to catch calls that really, we can really help with. And then if other people are better at it, it's better for them to go someplace else. Yeah.
When someone enters into a program provided by IHS Hawaii or partner agency, it's not going to be overnight, and to allow yourself grace as well to do the steps to get through the program, get into transitional housing, etc.
I'm so glad you said that, Kathy. It kind of brings to mind another service that we provide for the community, and it's our Imi Piha Triage Center. And, we just started that a couple years ago, but it is a place where people get started on their road to recovery from substance abuse. We actually do medication-assisted withdrawal management, which helps people to detox, from these very, very strong drugs, that are on the street these days. So I think, with that path, I think is a good example of what you talked about, because it's only for 5 to 10 days that they're with us there. But once they're detoxed, we usually, are connecting them up with either residential treatment that somebody else does. It's people like Hinamauka, Poilani, Hope Center, Salvation Army, different people that's their specialty, right? And then we also have Paipaiho Kauhale, which after they're finished, sometimes they're able to go to that shelter or transitional shelter. There we come back into their recovery pathway and we just provide that kind of support that they really need to rebuild that life that they had. Same with that reentry group coming out of incarceration. So I think, we recognize, like I said at the beginning, that we don't do this by ourselves, and we really strive to partner with other agencies as much as possible. We partner with government, we partner with other colleagues in homeless services, sometimes not exactly homeless services, maybe just really even basic counseling or, healthcare and stuff like that, right? So those are all components, that we really want to bring into the mix, particularly with people who are recovering from substance abuse and coming out of incarceration. Employment is a big thing. And we have pre-employment programs, and we have the Heli to Work program that connects them up, prepares them to go get a job and gives them the confidence to be able to do that, and feel like, okay, I can do this, and, have somebody doing the coaching on the side. But we also connect with the city's Work Hawaii program, so that all the resources that they have, through government can be at their fingertips as well. So we're really about using the vast community resource menu that is there to help people get to where they need to go. But ultimately, Kathy, it's about tailoring that package of services to that person. Because like you were saying, everybody's not the same, you know what I mean? And so we really want to make sure that we're listening to the person and hearing what it is that they want. And sometimes it's trying to help them figure out what it is that is motivating them to take that next step, giving them the inspiration and the, as I said, motivation to keep going. Because it's not easy, when you fall in that hard and that far, sometimes it's really tough, to find it within yourself to say, or to believe that you can do it,
This is Hawaii Matters. My name's Kathy with a K. I'm your host, and we are talking with Connie Mitchell, Executive Director with IHS Hawaii, Institute for Human Services Hawaii. For details, you can go to ihshawaii.org. And if you're listening and there are certain elements you might be recognizing in your own life, maybe you're not unhoused, you're not homeless, but maybe you're unhappy with your job, or maybe there's, just something that's going on. Continue to listen. Maybe there's something that maybe you can volunteer with IHS, and then that can direct you to a purpose, giving back more, and then Yeah, just something. There's something there for everyone, hearing stories.
Kathy, you mentioned about people coming and doing different things, volunteering. Some of our volunteers have become part of our staff, And so I just really invite people to just come and see if something appeals to you. We've had people make major, career changes coming to work at IHS. So I just really hope that people just stay open, to, how they might be feeling a call or a tug, to really do something that maybe they've longed to do for a long time and they never really explored any before.
Connie, how did you come to IHS Hawaii? Because you had said you had witnessed the founder doing as he did, but what made you take the step into true public service?
Kind of a funny story, I think, but I also think that there's so many elements of what I had done before in my work and my career that really led me to IHS, I think. But, for me, it's a God thing. It really was a calling that I felt. First of all, I'm a psychiatric clinical nurse specialist by training. So I actually worked with people who had mental illness, right? And not only that, I came from working at the Hawaii State Hospital. I was there for about 15 years in different capacities, right? And in between, I, kind of did a stint doing some teaching as adjunct faculty at the University for the School of Nursing. I also, during the earlier period, I was working part-time, and I was working also as a minister at a church, as a pastoral associate. So I did ministries with all ages, from the retired ladies to the preschool kids. And so it was just really fun, for me in that kind of an environment. I always sensed that my calling was healing. That was always really evident to me from the very beginning. And when I left the hospital, we had just finished the Department of Justice consent decree. So we got the state out of, that agreement with the feds. And it was time to do something different. And I remember I was looking around to see what I could do. And actually, a position that I applied for that I really thought I wanted, I didn't get. And I thought, I was so disappointed. But then, the call came from IHS, and they actually asked me, the board interviewing me, said, well, how long are you going to stay? Because they were thinking I was going to just stay for a little while and then move on to something else, right? And I just thought, well, I don't know. But you know what? You don't know if you'll like me, and I don't know how much I'll enjoy the work, But as it turns out, I've been there for 20 years now. But all the things that I did before have just really come into play. My work with mentally ill people, obviously, comes in really handy. And I think, my work at the Hawaii State Hospital, because everybody that was sent there by the time I was working there was forensic and what they're court ordered. And so I knew a little bit about, the court ordered process. And so, that is really handy, coming into IHS too, when we're trying to get people who are mentally ill on medications, right? But I didn't think I was going to be spending as much time in court as I do these days. But I think it was really helpful, to have that kind of experience. I think, really having the ministerial kind of background has been helpful in terms of understanding that the people we're serving have spiritual needs too. And sorry, I'm going to get a little emotional. But, when you've lost everything to become homeless, it really causes you to be in an existential crisis. And it's really helpful sometimes when there is a chaplain, to be able to talk to you about, what that means for you and what do you think is happening or where do you stand, in terms of your own spirituality. So it's really important, I think, to care for people in all aspects. As a nurse, I look at things holistically, so it's physical, mental, spiritual, psychological, everything, right? When I first got to IHS, as a nurse, I think our meals need to be more nutritious. We were getting a lot of donations and a lot of it was carbohydrates. And I thought, we need to get more vegetables into our meals. And so over the years, we developed a rooftop garden where we grow, our vegetables and stuff. And now, we had taken it down temporarily because we had to re-roof, but we moved the garden out to Kahawiki Village and Hale Maliola, the Sand Island shelter we have. So we're growing all kinds of stuff all over the place. I have to say that coming to IHS, that was my first nonprofit position, right? I never did that before. But what I've learned is that being at IHS has unleashed my creativity. It's really challenged me intellectually, to problem solve in ways that I have to think systemically. I'm not thinking just about just one person right here with what I got. I have to think about what they're encountering out there in the community as well, because they're bumping into these systems of care that do not always serve them rightly and very compassionately. I remember, one day I was really fighting for this one gentleman to get a motorized wheelchair because, he had a condition where he couldn't really do a regular wheelchair. And the insurance company was saying, well, he's homeless. They didn't know he was in the shelter, but he's homeless. And he needs to charge it up if he has an electric wheelchair. I said, well, he can come into the shelter and he can charge it up here, so everything they said, I was trying to tell them this is possible. And it started to feel like maybe, there was some version of maybe discrimination because the person was homeless. And I thought, wait a minute, everybody deserves, to have access to healthcare and, the things that they need to have a quality of life, right? I think that, a lot of the things that I've done prior to IHS has really helped me to understand some of the challenges that the people that we serve really encounter. In some ways, I think, the perspective that I come with is, a little bit different maybe than, what others see and what others want to get involved in. But I think that if we don't do it in a more holistic way, then, we sometimes will drive up the healthcare costs of the person, or we won't really give him, the real chance to recover, especially in this area of, the court-ordered treatment and, treatment with the injectable antipsychotics, right? I think when we first got started about 10 years ago, people just really couldn't understand it. They felt like, you're just violating the person's rights, But, I think the people that were involved, that we kind of gathered together to craft a bill in the legislature was very determined to ensure that the person's rights were protected. And so there is a guardian ad litem. There is, somebody there, to look after the person's best interests. And it's not just something that, the person in their mental illness can just say, no, I don't need treatment. They go off and they do all kinds of things that really reflect that they don't know what they're doing and they're not able to take care of themselves, Yeah, I think that a lot of the things that have happened to me in my own life, have really influenced me in a lot of different ways, to be where I'm at and to be advocating for the things that I'm advocating for today.
Thank you, Connie Mitchell and the Institute for Human Services Hawaii. You can go to ihshawaii.org to donate, volunteer, learn about their programs assisting our homeless neighbors on Oahu. To share or replay this episode, please search Hawaii Matters where you listen to podcasts and this station's website. For Pacific Media Group, I'm Kathy with a K. Mahalo.